Need to like intro, right?
I mean, we
I'm gonna do a
can.
very loosey-goosey intro.
All right, hit him with the
All
loosey
right.
goosey.
Hello, friends. Tonight we've gathered here with some of our usual crew. It's gonna be a lore cast. It's gonna be pretty informal. We're just gonna shoot the shit and talk. We'll interact with chat if you guys have any questions, things like that. Mostly, we're just gonna be talking about the gods today, talking about some background for the world to help build understanding, really, because we did plop you guys down in the middle of our second act. So,
Yep.
Yeah, it was a little bit. Hey. um. Yeah, so basically, we thought that the gods would be the easiest way to kind of introduce the world, just because, I mean, the gods were here before the world was and humanity
Mm-hmm.
was.
and they're pretty
So,
instrumental in the campaign as it is right now, but they were very
yes,
instrumental into why they even got here in the first place.
facts.
Like, how did they get here? It's like, well,
Mm-hmm.
funny story.
Um, so first we have the goddess Tenera. Do you
Yes,
want to
Tanera.
tell us a little bit about her?
Yes. So Tanera is the queen of the gods. As far as they know, she is the eldest of all of the current pantheon. She's goddess of the sun. She's married to the earth god Adal, and we'll talk about him in a few. She's also credited with the creation of humanity, specifically. So often throughout the world, things instead of saying Jesus Christ or oh my God, they'll say thank the Maker, by the Maker, things like that. Because I thought it
Love
was
it.
funny, but also that's generally what's going on with that. Yeah, so she is credited with making mortals. Well, as far as the humans were concerned, they felt it was all mortal life. But as we have discovered throughout our campaign, there are elves, dwarves, orcs, all types of sentient species, and now it is unclear. And Tenera is known for not being very involved in mortal affairs anymore. She was at one point, um, but she felt that her involvement was more of a detriment, so she pulled back hard. In Formonsa, worship of Tenera is the primary religion. Um, it's kind of like diet Catholicism. It's fantasy Catholicism, really. I won't lie to you. That's exactly what it
I mean,
is.
fair. Yeah, okay.
Um, and you know, some people got a little radical. In Act One, we had a splinter group that called themselves the Sons of the Divine. So the Divine, basically the Pope. So they had the Pope, and she out here poping, and they have a like a holy army of sorts. We had a character that was an NPC that was helping our party in the prequel to this campaign named Cassandra, and she was the right hand of the divine, which is a position that has to do with mostly like talking to people, being the face of an organization type thing. Like you are the words, the helping hand of the church, basically. And then there is something called the left hand, who is the sneaky and dark corner stabby. And I revealed in the prequel that that was our character Amelia's father. So that's what he's been up to when he wasn't taking care of his children. So yeah, and he was up to no good.
Yeah, I mean, I also remember that with Tenera specifically. So Cassandra being a follower of hers, when I first started, like play, I guess, trying out D&D and stuff like that, Um, I just knew that I wanted to like be a healer. So then it was like getting to meet another cleric within the world and see how those I guess like dynamics of what builds up a cleric made me really really like her. Um, I think our party has seen Tanera interfere or intervene once, right?
I would say our current cast, Amelia is the only one who has actually seen Tanera. I wouldn't say in person, but I'd say like in a version of her physical self.
Right.
Mm.
In Act 1, we saw her help Cass.
Yes, what I'm talking about is like visually laying eyes on her and being in the same presence as her.
Right.
But you did see her intervene exactly, I think, once.
Mhm.
There was a situation where the Sons of the Divine decided that they were going to wage a holy war, having to do with these new different groups of people who've now appeared. They felt as though they needed to spread the good word by force, which we all know how that goes.
Right.
So Cassandra had been excommunicated from this church because she spoke out against this movement. And so at this point, she decided, no, you're not about to just run amok doing the Crusades. And in that moment, she cast Divine Intervention. And it was actually pretty cool because I got to roll for Divine Intervention to see if it worked. And it very much did. Tanera intervened. And I made sure to let everyone know when that happens. Like, this is the first time Tanera has intervened in mortal affairs in millennia.
Yeah.
It was a really big moment. What she ended up doing was there was thousands of soldiers in their gold and white plated armor. She burned them in their own armor, like they cooked.
Yeah.
It was
pretty spicy. It was pretty spicy.
It's a cool scene.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
So she is married to our good homie, Adal.
Adal, yes. So Adal of the gods, he kind of likes to keep it low key. He's definitely kind of like
He just looks down to earth. LOL,
well,
pun not
he
intended.
Pun not intended.
I guess pun intended.
I guess so. The major things about Adal, he doesn't is as far as in the actual world state, he doesn't have as many stories about him. Mostly because similar to Tanera, he tries to keep to himself, but it's mostly because he's mellow. Tanera keeps to herself because when she intervenes, a lot of dominoes happen. Like a lot of things happen when she intervenes. Adal doesn't intervene much because there's the only time you would get on his bad side to get him to do something is if you are being the absolute worst. So think like you're dumping oil in the oceans and shit. Like he's not pleased.
Destroying the earth.
Yeah, like that's when he cares. Like he will step in. But generally, people would pray to him, for a good harvest. But things like that, like they pray to them both. Because farmers, it's like, we need the sun, need the earth, please, I need to eat. So it'd be like that, and then it'd be like small offerings, things like that, and he's pretty chill about that. He doesn't really have temples or clerics, and he really hasn't ever, unlike Tanera, who is a major religion.
You did say that
the
I
druids,
think it was a while back. Yeah, the druids have
the druids
couple...
respect him, but I think it's less about worshiping him and more about like respect for the land, having like more of an agreement, I guess.
Like being like, this is your domain.
Yeah, that's kind of more what the relationship with the druids, and to an extent the Dalish elves as well. So
we also
the main.
I think the only time that Amelia ever saw him was like he was basically chilling with Tanera the one time that she saw Tanera, and she was like, "Oh, holy
he's
shit!"
That's him. The main.
I actually don't know a lot about him.
he is credited with the condition of lycanthropy.
Oh.
So there was a mortal man a long time ago who was, in order to win his war, he sowed a blight upon the land, and it affected thousands, hundreds of thousands of miles of forest and farmland, and it killed everything in its path. And Adal didn't like that, so he cursed him. He cursed him to be this. Well, as they found him in the world before, he became this wolf creature. It was like blue and glowy, and it looked spooky, scary. But his main curse is that he is always hungry, but he cannot eat anything. If he eats anything, it like burns his mouth. And unfortunately for him, he is immortal, so he can't die. So he just suffers forever. Because the doll said, "Fuck you."
I mean, fair.
But anyone like in his rampage before he was basically by like magicians of yonder. He was kept in like this secluded area so he could stop harming people. When he'd bite people, they would contract lycanthropy and they'd be cursed like him to shapeshift. Not necessarily the part where he's immortal and suffers forever, but the part where they have to now like with the cycles of the moon change into a wolf. But that condition still exists in the world now, and people afflicted with it are shunned because it's a curse, and it is seen as a curse.
Interesting. Wow. I actually like did not know a lot about Adal, just because like within the world, since he is so far removed, he feels almost like even the clerics who move about the world, like they know that he's there, but they don't know much about him because he is that far removed from things that like no one would be like, what does a doll think about this, you know?
He's probably like, I mean, I don't know, as long as you don't mess up the earth, I don't care.
Like, yeah, just don't fuck with my shit and we're good.
Don't sow a blight on the land that decimates hundreds of thousands of acres of land.
Got
Right.
it.
And you're probably good. It's like, okay, that sounds easy not to do. It's like, you think it'd be easy not to do, right? However,
Some people are dumb.
Doing stuff.
calm down.
Okay.
Yeah, he's pretty chill.
So next we have Tanera's sister.
Yes.
Retris, who originally was Amelia's patron for being a cleric.
We have feelings about Retris.
We do have
I
feelings
know.
about Retris.
I'll do a spiel and you guys can talk about your feelings about Retris. Also, feel free to chime in on your feelings about any of these characters.
I forgot to say that Callie
Go
was
ahead.
raised in the Church of Tanera, even though she's not a follower of Tanera, but that's where
yes.
she was raised, in the orphanage.
That is also a small tidbit about Tanera. So that's a thing in this world. There is not all the orphanages are overseen by the church. That's just a thing.
Which also would make sense that
very,
like
like,
the patron
1940s.
goddess of orphanages would be the goddess who created humanity. Like that makes sense.
Like in a sense, Tanera then becomes your mother.
Right.
Okay.
It feels very like, you know,
sorry.
like those like orphanages where like a nun is your like, you know?
100%, which goes back to the Diet Catholicism.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there is a version of nuns in this world.
I love it.
There is a priesthood.
Yep.
It's a thing. It's consistent.
Yep.
I told you it was that Catholicism, and I meant it.
Like Catholicism in the sense that women can't be priests.
Right.
It is not. And
Okay.
that is because we have a pope that is a woman. We
That's
had a
where the
right hand
diet
with
comes
women.
in.
The misogyny isn't flavored the same, but it definitely is around.
It's present.
It's there. It's just not
It's
flavored the
there.
same.
It's just not the same.
Right. Right.
It's
Right.
different.
Misogyny.
Right.
Okay. So Retris is actually the younger sister of Tanera. They are not twins. So Retris is the goddess of the moon. She is credited with being the originator of magic in the world, as well as like a lot of magical creatures that exist. Whether that's true or not is debatable. But what we can ascertain is that she does favor those who have magic, but it's unclear why. It's also important to note that she generally does not like mortals, and the reason for that has to do with her disdain for Retris. They do not get along. They've had beef for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
They are known to work together if need be, but generally they stay in their own realms in order to keep balance, peace in the times.
Which I also think it would be interesting if you told why they did not like each other anymore.
Tea is
According
piping.
to what
Huh?
humanity understands.
Right.
So there's various stories. I'd like that as well as like, so it's like in Greek mythology where every story has at least 18,000 versions.
Yup.
It's also true with a lot of the dynamics with the gods in this world. So we're going to talk about Celia in a bit, but Celia is important. She's the goddess of love. Celia predates pretty much everyone we're going to talk about today.
So I just want to ask a question. So
Yeah.
Adal, Tanera, and Retris and Celia, they're the 4 gods that are not children of gods, correct? Or the-
No.
To clarify, Retris and Tanera are and Adal are all children of gods. Celia is not. Celia would be considered a Titan.
Oh, so there's Titans?
There's primordials.
There's like a equivalency type thing I'm trying to draw here.
Oh, okay. I thought like
Mhm.
everyone else is like a child of Retris or so, and those 3, I guess, were or 4.
Well,
like
Tanera, Retris, and Adal were created by primordial chaos and order.
And Celia came into existence because of the love between
Chaos
Chaos
and
and Order,
Order.
right?
Right.
Yes. It's unclear whether or not she just popped into existence or she is their child. It's one of those things where it's kind of
It depends on what book you read.
Yeah, it's very much like, I mean, sure.
in the essence
It gets
of
muddy.
they loved each other so much that she came into existence.
Yeah,
She's their
in that essence, sure.
Mm-hmm.
like literal.
But she was not created the same way the rest of the gods were that we just talked about.
Okay.
It's probably most similar to like the actual like lore about Aphrodite, I
Mhm.
suppose.
Or
Mm.
Athena.
Similar to that, or Athena, where they just decide to exist. They now exist.
Gotcha. Yeah.
That's just kind of how Celia works. But Celia predates all of them.
Someone threw a thing in the ocean and she popped out of that.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
But that didn't happen here because there was no ocean yet.
Right.
Yet.
There was no world,
There was-
so.
There was no world yet.
Mm.
There was a vast void of nothingness. Celia would describe it as very boring. It was a very boring time.
The best idea Tanera ever had was making humanity.
It was
Yeah.
so entertaining.
Sick idea, Tanera.
She gave me free Netflix for life. It was great. Real.
Amazing.
Okay, so about the beef. Sorry to circle back. So the beef. So like I said, Celia predates all of them. But before Tanera became Queen of the Gods, and you have the world state you're in right now, chaos and order basically were in a push and pull in ruling the world, so to speak.
Hmm.
So, but the thing is, when they fight, if ever one is stronger than the other, you have imbalance, and the world gets very fucky very quickly. So, the gods got together, and they're like, okay, listen, we gotta do something about this. And so they did. They decided to have them sleep, for however long they could keep it like that. They used all their power to do that. And so that's kind of how things have been for a very long time. Chaos and order have been asleep. And after that, Tanera was made leader for various reasons. I haven't mentioned this before, but it's fine, whatever. I think initially they wanted to have Celia be the leader, but she didn't want to do that. That wasn't a job that she was interested in.
Interesting.
Wait, I have a question about the goddess of chaos.
Okay, go ahead.
That is it the same chaos that was in the prequel?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
The
she's
one
not
who has
asleep.
been released into the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
She's not asleep anymore.
God, okay. I just wanted to like double check.
And we also like do not have photos for those two goddesses because they do not have humanoid forms. So they'd be a little bit more like mystical based.
They're in essence.
Right.
They just are.
They simply
Exactly.
are.
Okay.
Retros.
Okay. So, I was talking about the lore, the beef.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yes.
so basically, Tanera then became Queen of the Gods. Retros wasn't pleased with this because she wanted to be in charge, but they all kind of decided it was probably best for Tanera to be in charge. The reason being was just because Celia was the oldest doesn't mean she should be in charge, and she didn't really want the job anyway. So Tanera was the second oldest. She was also more level-headed. She was more had more leadership qualities, so to speak. There we go.
I feel like Retros would just let the world burn and not care.
Probably.
Probably. So, but she is attracted to power. She likes to be in charge. She likes power. And to be denied this power left her with a chip on her shoulder. So throughout the millennia, they all were working together for various reasons to get things done and craft the world. Retris kind of always looked down on Celia. Her reasoning being that she didn't do much. Because understand as well, before Retris had her children, she was over the domains of magic, dreams, war, all the domains that belonged to her children once belonged to her. Okay?
Mhm.
So she felt like I have all this power. I'm I'm pretty dope. I'm hot shit, which she is. But also, it's women supporting women. Okay, we're not gonna tear down women. Okay, here. But she was all about tearing down women. She's like, all you have over there is love. That's actually bullshit and dumb.
She was not a girl's girl.
No,
She was
not
not.
at all. Definitely not. So she's like, all you have over there is love. That's actually bullshit and dumb. Celia said, heard.
Yeah. And she took that personally.
Anyway, so I took that personally.
Oh, God.
So as I've mentioned before, Retris did not like mortals, mostly because Tanera created them, and it was like an extension of her power that she wasn't a big fan of. Celia, in her pettiness, because we love her pettiness, she decided, I want to make you fall for a mortal. And then she did. And she then concocted a situation where said mortal then died tragically. And the entire story about that is how we get the story about the moon and the ocean, about how the tides go in and out. So they're always reaching for each other but cannot touch. That whole thing. So the Wretches was in the end turned the mortal into the ocean. But Celia framed the situation in a way where it looked as though Tanera killed this mortal because Tanera made very strict rules about, I don't want you fucking with my project because I know you don't like them. Basically.
Also, it was very much, and correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't she also the gods don't get like do not fuck with mortals, do not have children with mortals, stay the hell
literally and
away.
figuratively.
Yes.
Literally and
okay.
figuratively. But
Okay.
that's like a thing. Like that's kind of a root of some of our problems right now. The gods
Right.
made an agreement about this. They're like, okay, in order to keep balance, because that's the whole goal for the gods, is to keep balance, keep things from getting out of whack. Because things get weird otherwise.
Mhm.
Like the fabric of reality. So,
Right.
So the
like
realm
things like that.
together.
Very subtle hint there.
I'm just letting it be known it's real. Like before you guys even were on your adventure, this was something they were grappling with. So they made these rules. Retris disobeyed these rules. Mortal ended up dying. So she decided it must have been Tenera who did this. She had no proof, really, but it made logical sense that it would be Tenera to be like, no, shut this shit down. So that almost caused a war between them.
Did Celia ever come clean?
No.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
I love
Why would
that.
she do that?
Listen.
No, I'm just saying, like,
She's never
why
gonna do
not?
that. That's some stupid shit.
Yeah. So Celia made all of this. It's very much giving the apple, the golden apple.
Yeah.
It's very much giving that. Celia just sat back and watched the chaos, really. After this. And Retris was destroyed, very upset, wanted to cause him now a war with the gods. And yeah, that was her little revenge after that. So they still have beef to this day, over many situations, but that's a big one. So Retris is a goddess. She is credited with bringing magic into the world. She gave magic to mortals, mostly to see what would happen. That's pretty much it. She wanted to see what would happen. And what in fact ended up happening was, for a long stretch of time, mortals with magic became extremely powerful and started to create kingdoms, create complex cities and societies. And in that, using magic to control others, which she thought was pretty interesting. She didn't really have an opinion on it, whether good or bad. She was like, oh, okay, interesting. Yeah, that happened. Aside from that, she had 4 children on her own. The eldest being Dormir.
Do you want
And
me
then,
to switch to
yeah, go
them?
ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
This
The
hunkin' piece of god, damn.
eldest being Dormir, her eldest son. And 2 others, we'll talk about them in a second, but I'll name them. Eris and Onyx, who are twins, and then
Hecta.
the youngest being Hecta.
Oh, that
Um,
checked so hard, Eris and Onyx being twins.
Yep.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, and that makes everything make sense.
Yep.
I want you to explain what you mean.
So Eris is, well, Eris.
Mm-hmm.
And they just have very similar, like, personality types, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Like,
Mhm.
Onyx is very much, ew, get away from me, I don't care about you, whatever. And she's just kind of like, I'm gonna destroy your whole world.
But I feel like
truly
Eris has
believe-
a reason.
Right. I do truly believe that in a lot of instances, Onyx and Eris are very much like same word, different font, or like
Yeah.
two sides of the same coin. You
They
know what
really
I mean? Because in a lot of ways, and like I can jump into it, I think a little bit more when we actually get to Onyx or Retris. Or Eris, dang it, I keep doing it. No, but like when we get to them, I feel like there's a lot of similarities, which is actually why Amelia originally butted heads with Onyx, even though for a lot of things they were kind of on the same team. I guess.
Yeah.
We'll
go more
yeah,
in
we'll
depth
get
with
there.
them.
Very much like I will burn the world down for being wronged, but Onyx is more for the one that he loves. If he does love someone at the time, that's more important to him. Versus,
Right.
I feel like Eris would never, quote, in her mind, stoop that low.
Yeah, I don't think she would attach herself to any specific mortal,
everything's
but
all
she
about
does
her.
want the mortals to feel like she believes them to be important because she needs them to perpetuate her domain.
Yes.
You know? Yeah, for sure.
But we'll get more to it when we get to them. But let's give Dormir his time.
Yeah.
Dormir is Retrus's eldest. He was given one of her domains, which is death, and he presides over like another plane, which is where the dead go. Every mortal soul passes through his domain. It's a lot. It's a very big responsibility, which makes sense why she gave it to her eldest son. He is very even-tempered. He's very logical. He weighs everything very intensely before he makes a decision. That's just who he is. He actually, I want to talk about the realm of the dead a little bit. So the realm of the dead, it looks to be like dark gray beaches, the waters of which are black. You do not want to swim in those waters. You will be sucked down into sorrow, because that's where a lot of lost souls end up. But when someone is to die in this world, they end up washed up on the shores, and they get ferried by a figure similar to Karen to another beach. And on said beach, souls can wait however long they need to before they go to, I wouldn't say judgment, because what ends up, it's not really judgment, it's more of like a choice. So you can wait on the shore as long as you want. Souls wait on the shore for them it could feel like seconds or decades, depending. It just depends on the person. Often souls will wait for other souls that they were close to in life to see them again. They don't have to. There's a lot of choice involved because I wrote it, but I just thought it was really it would be like cathartic, I guess. It's like, so you die well before someone you care about. You can wait on the shores for them if you so choose. You will not be forced to move on. And I use the term "move on purpose. So a big thing about it is once the soul is ready, they can go into Dormir's chambers, into the actual like big palace that he does reside in. And they are read the story of their life. A thing of note is when a soul dies, they are taken to the land of the dead by Celia. So they are taken to the land of the dead by love each time. The only like exception to that is if you were an absolute horrible warmongering person on this plane, Dormir himself will come get you. You don't want Dormir himself to come get you, ever. You just don't. Okay? You don't want that, because he will deal with you. Anyway, but for everybody else who is normal, you read the story of your life by Celia. She loves this task. It's one of her favorite things to do. She will read the story of your life, and it's fairly objective. She'll just tell you exactly what happened and hopefully what you learned in this lifetime. And then you're offered a choice. You can stay in basically like Greek mythology, where they have different like levels to this shit, where there's like the fields where you can just chill out. Like, it's not bad or good, it's just very neutral. It's kind of like purgatory. There's definitely a bad place, but the bad place is reserved for people that Dormir had to personally go get. So most people are not in the bad place. Either you're in the neutral place, but there is like an equivalent to Elysium, which is like a very very nice, tranquil, never-ending food and goodies and great things if that's what you want. But there is also a fourth option, and this option is to move on. So you'd be reincarnated. You would try again. Whatever it is. You have no real like decision making and what your next life looks like. Really, it's just you get another shot. Try again. That's what I call moving on. So in this world, if a soul has decided to move on, there is no reviving that person because who they were is gone.
We have had in a past campaign that was a leg of this current one was Amelia's old party basically getting a TPK but going to the underworld. And it was really interesting to see how like one arrives on the shores of the underworld,
And it's a
what
singular
happens there.
experience.
Yes.
The whole party did die, and they died together. However, each one of them washed up on the shores alone.
Right.
This is a singular journey.
And it's really interesting because I think also noting that nobody can tell you what happens after you die, right? Well, I guess Amelia could tell people now, but like when she first arrived on those shores, I remember that she was really like, "What the just happened?" sort of thing. So it was really interesting to have like a session where you're just in the underworld and figuring out that dynamic.
Yeah.
But we should talk about his wonderful wife that we all know and love.
Yes, you can't really talk about Dormir without talking about Celia.
Right.
So,
and okay,
picture
also
here.
I feel like it's important. This is how Amelia sees Celia.
So a thing about Celia, which I personally love, and I added this to her character because it felt important to me. Celia doesn't look like any one thing. Celia is she looks however your character sees her, basically, which could be a variety of things. Within the world itself, when she does appear to the party, she tends to shift and change throughout the entire time you're talking to her. If you try and focus too hard and try to pin her down to being one thing, it'll give you a headache. Like you don't. It's not a possible thing to be doing. The only individual who knows her true face is Dormir. That's it.
It's really beautiful.
Hell yeah.
That is it. But she takes on many forms.
It seems like the most beautiful entity should be married to the other most beautiful entity.
Facts. But yeah, so like I said, Celia she predates pretty much the entire pantheon right now. She's existed for not an unfathomable amount of time. In their dealings with her, Celia is very, she's kind of Dormir's opposite in a lot of ways. She can be a bit impulsive. She does like being involved in mortal affairs, so she's not really supposed to, but she also is really intrigued by these different stories, and that's what she calls mortals' lives, their stories. It's like I said, when a soul dies, she reads them their life. So she has read many lives up until this point. She does, in fact, choose favorites, like souls that she thinks are interesting, and she'll follow them throughout their lives to see what happens. But generally, her job, helping out Dormir, is ferrying souls and reading their lives. And in her own time, she can be in a couple different places at once. She's not omnipotent, really, but she's able to be in different places if she so chooses. Most of the time, it's like she's sending half her attention to her literal job, and then the other half into whatever she wants, which could vary. She seems fairly kind. She's good with the party, like because she likes them. because the party has her favor, generally good things come from that. Having Celia's favor is actually a rare thing. She doesn't really give her favor freely, mostly because it's just not her way.
Well, she doesn't have a lot of followers.
She doesn't anymore. So in the very, very early times, back when this version of humanity was not, they were not civilizations, they were like scrounging around. Even early civilizations, a lot more of them turned their attention to getting the favor of Celia. But in that time, she was a different goddess. It would be important to say that she viewed mortals more as like entertainment, like a similar way that people who like to play with ants view them. So a lot of the time, getting her attention is it could be great and it could be terrible, and you never know what will happen ever, really. But yeah, Dormir also he was never particularly popular, I guess. He had like a few worshippers. We have one of our players, Jordan, who is from a cult of Dormir, which is actually fairly rare in this world state. Most people don't directly address him unless someone is dying or has died. They don't, because he's scary to them, very scary. Because it's an unknown. People fear the unknown.
I think it's because there's also the misconception of they think he's the god of death and not god of the dead.
Yes.
Like he's just a businessman trying to do his job, and he's like
doing
not
clerical work. He's running the numbers. Like that's
He's
what
simply
he does.
trying to make sure that everybody gets where they need to be, homie.
Really?
I also feel like with Celia, Celia has started to play a very big role in Amelia's life. Mainly because I feel like we should do independent like lore nights for everybody's
For
person.
sure.
That would be super fun, I think. To kind of do like a catch up on everybody's backstories and
we can do that next time for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, like we can talk about like the history of the world. We have a lot of like lore
You know, a lot of
topics that we can hit.
Yeah.
But I think that Amelia actually originated, I guess, quote unquote, as a cleric and follower of Retris, because she believed that Retris had saved her life. But she was very much in a temple of Retris, and as we just stated, she appears to you as what you need most in that moment. And so when she was a child, she didn't find this out until she was like 24, 25 probably, that it was actually Celia who saved her life, but she had taken on the appearance of Retris because of where she was and how old she was at the time.
In an attempt not to frighten the child.
Right, which we appreciate. And so Amelia, under that level of understanding, basically took it as okay, well, now since Retris has saved my life, like I will dedicate my life to hers, right? And then it wasn't until way later when she kind of discovered like, oh, all of these like small little Easter eggs in my life actually make way more sense with Celia than they do with Retris.
But Retris is also the type of, I guess, person, goddess, who will gladly take credit for things as long as it continues with what she wants.
And also, Retris very much pushed the narrative for Amelia that she had all of this attention that nobody else had, and like no other mortal had. So it's also like in part of she just fell into the, oh my gosh, I'm important to somebody. And at that point in her life, which I will not jump into right now, she needed somebody to need her. So Celia kind of coming in, and you'll be able to tell whenever we have sessions and Amelia and Celia interact. Amelia is still very much waiting for Celia to like drop the other shoe, so to speak, because she is so used to such a toxic relationship with Retris and the demands that were
Yeah, she's
demanded.
used to the what am I trying to say? Not conditional love, but conditional like favor.
Yeah, I would even say like Amelia would have identified it as conditional love, but Retris is like, this is very much not love.
Very much like you do what I want you to do, and I'll maybe give you some.
I'll still talk to you. Yeah,
I'll
every
give you
once in a while.
crumbs, basically.
Yeah. And so it's interesting for sure. And so Amelia kind of has had, and you'll notice these little pieces of almost PTSD from Amelia of this is what I'm used to. So when things like go back to what I think is typical, I think that Celia is mad at me, while I think Amelia cannot comprehend that Celia is literally just here for the vibes. So it's a really interesting dynamic, I think, and I'm actually kind of bummed that we didn't get like on stream when her magic changed because her domain changed. I felt like that was such a fun thing to like role play and kind of like build out just because like clerics are so dependent on like faith-based magic, right? And her faith changed, but the intensity of it did not. So her level doesn't change from like cleric levels. So it was really cool to like do that dynamic, and Mars and I had a lot of conversations about that prior, about just like, how would this work? Does that even make sense? That sort of thing. So Celia has been a mother figure to Amelia, and that's why she appears to Amelia in such a motherly figure type appearance. So yeah, we love Celia here. Celia loves us, but we know that that is a blessing and a curse. So
Congratulations, you're the narrative's favorite. Don't even know this, but that's worse.
Yeah. Congrats.
But yeah.
Y'all are all the main characters. Wait a second. Yeah.
What would you say, Morgan?
Does anyone in the party have a mom, or
No.
all have mommy issues as well as daddy issues?
We all have mommy issues.
And daddy issues.
And daddy issues.
Which makes them interesting.
Well, actually, okay, Callie does not have daddy issues. So that's
no,
benefit.
she had the best dads in the world. The only real daddy
have
issues is that one of them did unfortunately pass away.
Yeah, yeah. But
like not in a well, was it traumatic?
Yeah, it's more like he disappeared one day.
He just disappeared
and you find out that he died.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not even in the when he went to get milk, like legit, like he just dead ass was gone. And like what?
But then no one remembered him.
Nope.
For a period of time.
For a period of time until the thingy was dead.
And we'll go over that later. But yes.
Okay, so we have, now that we've talked about Dormir, the eldest child of Retris, we can talk about his or her twins.
Yes, her twins.
The first being Onyx.
Onyx.
Yeah.
So, Onyx is actually third born. Eris is older.
Do you want me to go Eris first?
No. It's okay.
Okay. My bad.
He has He has more things to say than Eris will, that I'm willing to share. So, Onyx. So Onyx, much like Eris, like they both for millennia were basically two peas in the pod. They did everything mostly together, um, with the exception being, Eris was kind of the leader. Like she would make a decision, and Onyx would say, all right," and just go with it. He wasn't okay. He didn't really have a lot of pushback about it, mostly because he didn't care that hard. That was pretty much it. He didn't have too much interest in mortals. It wasn't like he hated them, but he also wasn't like thrilled, really. Um, he is the god of dreams. Um, the elves, the like nomadic tribes of elves, they call him like in their language, the Great Liar, because he deals in illusions. He deals in things that aren't necessarily true. But Onyx isn't a liar necessarily. It's more about, especially with dreams, it shapes what you expect to be there into whatever you'd like. But for his purposes,
Really good at spinning the truth in such a way that it's not a lie, but
yes,
technically.
Onyx will spin the truth in a way that benefits him, but he will also negate a lot of information because that also benefits him.
He's kind of like your traditional Fae in that sense.
Yeah. He won't directly lie to your face, but he also won't tell you the direct truth if it wouldn't help him in any way.
Yeah.
But yeah. So before the campaign really, and before most of those of the characters who are alive, Onyx stayed to himself. All of Regis's children, by the way, their true form are dragons. Did not mention that up top. I should have.
It's okay.
Dormir,
we're not too far into her kids, so
yeah, Dormir appears as like a dark brown scaled dragon with like yellowish eyes. Onyx, he's like a black dragon. He has like a lot of like psychic like abilities, a lot of smoke and mirrors type things that he would do. Another perk of his power set is that he has access to all the information that is known or has been known by any living thing in the world, basically. That because he can traverse minds. That is part of his powers. So, he was instrumental in actually the founding of Formonsa. He was one of the main advisors to Johannes, who was the very first king of Formonsa, colloquially known as the Boy King, because he became king at around 14 or so. By the time Onyx became his advisor, he was well into his 40s. But from that time, Onyx was an advisor for several of the royals, but they continued to make decisions that he didn't approve of because he was trying to sway them in a certain way. And during this time, he became more distant from Eris, and Eris ended up doing her own thing. The mortals devolved into chaos, war, and he was actually trying to prevent all-out war. Onyx isn't warlike. He likes negotiations. He likes to get a one-up on his opponent through mind games and words, which is in direct contrast with his sister. So, because of this, they became not as close over time.
More of the strategy over the physical concepts of war.
Oh yeah, he's politics.
Yeah.
If anyone's politics, it's him.
Disgusting, but okay.
I
continue.
know. He's a politician. I know. Anyway, so basically, the mortals decided, especially, and he was also helping them like learn more magic to the extent that was beneficial to him. But they started to surpass what he was willing to teach them. They were learning on their own at a speed that he couldn't squash or control. And they decided they no longer needed his help, which pissed him off. So he left Mortal Society, and he took up residence on his mountain in his dragon form, and he said, "Everyone leave me alone," basically. He didn't really talk to anyone, including his siblings, for a very, very long time. Onyx is instrumental in Queen Renata's story, and we'll talk about her more, and he'll come up again when we talk about her. But the long and short of it, after she was banished and she needed to learn magic, magic had been outlawed in the kingdom since well before she was born. She decided to seek him out because the druid said that he would know how to help her because he has immense amounts of knowledge at his disposal all the time. So when she went to learn from him, eventually he did agree, taught her magic. She went back, reclaimed her throne, and he came back with her. He became an advisor to a royal for the first time in a very, very long time. Things didn't end great for them for a lot of reasons, but
understatement, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to make it like a summary. So, as it stands in the storyline now, Renata
trying to get
banished
back
him.
into her good graces.
She banished him
Yes.
from her realm. She said, "Get out."
And he kind of sort of came back because
he came back
his sister
because
was trying to do some fuck shit.
Yes, Eris was initially Onyx was on her side. She came to him and offered him power and influence in exchange for his help in something that she wanted to accomplish. However, she did not fully tell him the scope of her plans.
And he doesn't
so,
like that.
Yeah, he didn't take too kindly to that. So as soon as he found that out, they were no longer in cahoots.
So, speaking of,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we should jump to Eris.
Yes. Let's go ahead and scope on over to Eris.
So we have Eris.
So Eris is the goddess of war. She has been instrumental in mortal politics, but she's more inclined to encourage conflict. Surprise. But she prizes power. She prizes those who do understand strategy and want to be top dog, as it were. She has a preference for the elves. She actually likes the elves more than she likes humans for several reasons. But there's a period of time where, so there is a process in this world where a mortal who has enough magic can trap a god and basically siphon their power as their own. This is an extremely painful process, okay? And it's not fun for anybody. Eris was trapped for, I want to say, maybe about 20 years or so. And afterwards, she then decided she was going to wipe humanity from the face of the earth. Fair enough. Mm-hmm. So, that was part of her intention with Act 1. She had many avenues in which she was planning to do this. And in that way, she decided to use anything at her disposal. Nothing was off the table. She used Onyx by omitting the truth and getting him to do her bidding. She also, in a scene that my players were a part of, used Hecta. And we can go over to Hecta real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So Hecta is the youngest of the four. She is the goddess of magic. Eris intended to use Hecta and her power to further her plans and her goals. Hecta was not knowing about this beforehand. So an important thing about Hecta, she looks younger and does behave younger than the rest of them. She's the youngest of the gods. She is way older than any of the humans that we know. But as far as the gods are concerned, she's baby.
Yep.
They're like, oh yeah, that's she's baby.
That's our child. Yep.
She Hector prefers to travel in the southern parts of Formonsa when she was alive. Not alive, she's not dead, but I mean like when she was in her humanoid form running around. She
When
had like a
she
moving
had a
part.
vessel to travel in.
She had a vessel. She'd move about. She'd meet new people. She made some friends, but she preferred to just keep moving. She liked the excitement of meeting new people and seeing new things. That was what she preferred. Unlike the rest of her siblings, actually more like Dormir, she preferred to stay to herself. But unlike Dormir, she actually did interact with mortals, but in a more one-on-one personal way. Not so much trying to influence the politics of the land or gain power in any way. She just thought they were interesting and she wanted to meet new people all the time and see new things. That was her whole spiel.
Also, Hecta, isn't it pretty like known that among the 4 siblings who are the children of Retris, all of them can agree that Hecta should be protected at all costs, and then they really don't give a shit, depending on the millennia, about the others.
I think Hector has a general favorable view amongst the general populace. As of now, there was a period of time where, like I said, magic was outlawed. So her existing and being, hey, I'm a goddess of magic, it wouldn't have went over well. Yeah. So she stayed to herself. She's like, this is a difficult time, so I'm really not gonna be out and about.
Fair.
But as far as her siblings go, Eris's actions, which resulted in the destruction of her vessel on the mortal plane, definitely would not have endeared her to any of her siblings. Okay. They don't have ill will toward Hecta at all.
Right.
I would even argue that Eris didn't either. Yeah. But she doesn't. It's a means to an end.
Yeah, she had her own agenda, and then essentially Hecta was a part of it, but it's not necessarily like I'm doing this because I don't like Hecta. It's like, I'm just doing this because I have stuff that I want.
I have machinations.
Yes.
So yes.
Also, Morgan, do you want to talk about Sarah's impact of Hecta? I mean, like, even most recently, if you want.
Mm-hmm. Was that wasn't in stream, was it?
No, it was not.
Okay, so basically, since Sarah has discovered that she has magical bloodlines / like, she kind of randomly discovered that she had magical abilities in Act 1 and was like, whoa, this is cool, started researching a bunch, and realized that in order to really gain a better understanding of herself and magic, she needed help from Hecta, because there was no one who around her that could really give her the guidance and magic that she needed. Mm-hmm. Because I think it was just a completely different type of magic.
Right, which I think is honestly something really cool that we do within the world. Is like, it's not like magic is almost like a blanket ability, right? Which, like, of course it isn't, because even how regular D&D is played, it doesn't do that either. But I think what's really interesting about it is that, like, all of them, like, they almost don't know what to do when somebody has magic, because we're like, okay, well, all of us have gotten magic from different means and modes, right? So
I feel that, like, Ren was probably the most compatible that she could have asked, but Ren is over here running a country and does not have time to teach Sarah magic.
Right.
It's crazy how that could be.
And I think also, like, if you have magic that comes from different sources or like different bloodlines, even, it acts in a different way for everybody.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And so she kind of dove headfirst into just research about Hecta. And when she found out that Hecta was no longer on this plane, she kind of was like, well, what are we going to do to free her? What are we, like, how do we do this?
Right.
So it's
Yeah, when Hector lost her physical form, she is not dead.
Nope.
What it means is that she was then basically sent back to her own realm, which is a subset of Retrus's realm. She cannot walk amongst mortals as she actually is. That would be terrifying for everyone.
Right.
So instead, because she no longer has her vessel, she just stays there until she can regenerate a new one, which for the gods takes an insanely amount of time to regenerate a mortal form, unless they got a human vessel, which is a process in which a god can make, like, they can ask a mortal to, like, basically take their body, and it has to be, they have to say yes. But the problem is that when they do start this process, it's not reversible, and that person, whoever they were to begin with, is burned out.
Right. Like there's no traces of them anymore.
Yeah.
It feels very it feels like Supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
When like an angel takes over and it like burns the soul out of the body because
Yes.
like they're so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty much like that, only it's not instant. It's not an instant thing. It takes time.
Yeah, it's a slow process.
And I think that
Yeah.
that's another thing about Hecta is she has a deep caring for humanity. And so even when, you know, Amelia's like, I could find you a vessel, like we could find somebody, Hecta is like, I don't want to burn somebody's soul out. So like,
Yeah.
I'm good. Like we'll find a different way, sort of thing. And that's very much like her personality, is to be a little bit more like caring and understanding of mortality for people, which was really interesting. Like when we met her, she basically went around, met new people, and then like tried to like heal or help in some way, whenever she encountered people. So it was really, really interesting to meet her because she's very kind.
Yeah.
While most of the other gods are like, ew, humanity, you're under my feet, kind of thing.
Well, I'd say of all of the gods that we'll talk about, Hecta is the most genuinely kind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
right.
Yeah.
That's
Hecta.
Next, we have the twins who are the children of Celia and Dormir, the gods of dusk and dawn. So, first we have Dawn, our good old Orion.
All right, we have Orion. Orion is the eldest. He is the god of the dawn. He is a wacky fellow. He's here for a good time, also a long time. He's known for when he is on the mortal plane, he'll just show up in taverns. He'll show up in different areas and still start playing music, and his music is always bomb. He is that guy. He wants to be a DJ. I'm kidding. He's a bard, but he's not just a bard. He is the bard.
He is the bard of all bards. Like
He's
they
the first
like
bard.
the bardic school is his school.
That's him.
I said, I had put in the chat. I was like, basically, he's him, the boss.
He is him.
He simply is him.
But he also has like I feel like he cosplays like the like dean of admissions to the bard school.
Oh, absolutely.
He would do that.
If Amelia finishes the Pantheon in Formonsa, Orion will simply reside in the temple. Like he will simply just be there.
And
much like
hired someone, but he'll show up and pretend to be that person.
Right.
And they're like, who even are you? He's like, oh, I'm Orion. Like, this is my school, excuse me?
You don't know me?
You don't know me?
You heard me?
It opened yesterday. I don't really know what a bard is yet.
Are you real? Okay, but much like Hector, Orion enjoys people, but I think he enjoys humans similarly to how Celia does. It's like entertainment. He does like people more than most of the other gods. But more like it's a good time. He's a great time. He's the party guy. He's gonna have a good time. But yeah, he spends a lot of his time amongst mortals because he thinks that it's fun.
I also feel like Orion really enjoys the dynamics of humanity. And kind of what I mean by that, like just in every interaction that I've seen, how he kind of has a similarity, but he is still different than Celia, is that I feel like Orion really enjoys seeing the relational interactions between people, right?
It is a curiosity for him because this is not
of like, why do y'all tick like that? Y'all are kind of weird, but I like y'all because y'all are funny weird. So I'm. He
also tends to float.
Yes.
He floats for many reasons, but he can fly when he wants to for sure. But he'll also start floating if he gets nervous. If he's suddenly a little bit confused, he's thinking really hard about something, he'll just become untethered to this.
I feel like he's just
plane.
always at least an inch off the ground.
Generally, unless he's focusing really hard on it.
He's a little bit Peter Pan-esque.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much like we don't need to grow up. That's boring.
He is very much forever like a forever kid at heart.
Yes.
He looks to be probably early 20s, but a lot of the time it's speaking to him, he'll range from his knowledge. He knows a lot. He's very old. Mm-hmm. If you were to ask him something about something that happened hundreds of years ago, he'd probably tell you. But he's going to give you an opinion from like a bystander because he doesn't particularly like getting involved all that much. Mostly because he doesn't believe that he has that much impact on things. Which is an interesting.
His mom binge watch reality TV together.
They definitely do. There was definitely a scene we had where one of our players was in a Coliseum type gladiatorial fight.
Amazing.
And Celia, I believe one of you, it might have been Amelia, asked for Celia's help.
Yes.
And Celia did show up, and she sat in the box with you guys, and she had Orion come help, and he did some vicious mockery, and it was pretty good.
It was.
And she was so very proud of her son.
She really
so very, very, very proud.
It was kind of a crazy moment too, because
you're doing amazing, sweetie.
I don't think people realized that we had two gods in the same vicinity of each other by like maybe 10 or 15 feet, and that's wild. Like
my headcanon is that he learned to speak fluent thieves' cant because he thought it was funny.
Oh yeah, 100%.
In Formonsa, it's canon that thieves' cant is just Gen Z slang.
Yeah.
Yes.
Gen Z slang of any kind.
Gen Z slang mixed with like Twitch speak.
Yeah.
I feel like also
Orion would 100% say, "Hey chat, what's up?"
And everyone's like, "What the fuck is he talking about?"
And he's just like,
"Mods ban this guy."
He's like, "Mute him. Mute him. You're muted. You're done." All right, like I totally.
All right, you're going in timeout.
I could see Orion 100% starting a conversation with, "Hey chat, it's Orion." He would totally do that.
He would.
But his twin sister, Umbra. Oh, she's beautiful. I love her.
She's stunning.
She's stunning, babes.
Stunning, babes. So Umbra, she takes more after her father. She's more very demure, very mindful. She likes to stay in the study. She likes to learn. She learns about the mortal world through books and treatises and the documentation of other people's lives. Actually, like Celia does. But she doesn't have any interest in walking the mortal realm. She could if she wanted, but she usually doesn't. The only times that she does is when Orion convinces her, which is very rare, but it does happen. If he says he's going to throw a banger party, and she's like, and he will convince her to go.
Like, can we go? She's like, I'm not going. I guess you can.
What do you mean? What is this we?
Mom rarely stops you from doing shit, so
Just
go ahead.
but yeah, she's not like she can't leave the realm of the dead. She just prefers not to. Um, she's the goddess of the dusk. She's calm, still waters, much like Dormir. We haven't seen her much in the campaign as of yet. The main reason anyone would reach out to Umbra for anything would probably be any rituals that need to be performed at dusk, for knowledge purposes. Um, she does have a lot of knowledge on like things like rituals and things like that. That's
Love
very
that.
much her thing.
Okay.
Very witchy adjacent.
Okay.
Hmm.
I don't know. Yeah, I think I've only had like Amelia has only interacted with her once, and it basically was Orion trying to be like, we should throw a party and invite people, and she said we shouldn't. Stop talking to me and leave. And he said, okay, she's so boring, and that was it. um,
That's his sis. He's like, yay, and she's like, no.
Yeah. But I also love just like the balance that I feel a lot of the gods provide for each other, either directly or indirectly.
Hmm.
And the gods within this world um, are very dynamic. And one of the things that I really, really love, it's actually because Critical Role did a series on basically like the gods, and it was a very short campaign. Um, but I remember that as a cleric main, I was like, ooh, curious, interesting, different.
Chomping at the bit.
I know. I was like, gimme. I love this. And it was one of those things where like I started to think about like the dynamics of the gods, because I think like a lot of times whenever you're watching D&D or playing D&D even, you have these moments where like you forget that they are gods and our characters are mortals, right? And so because you have certain gods who are a little bit more like personable or kind, like Hecta, that sort of thing. I think sometimes our characters can forget that they are not on the same playing field at all. And so that's why even at the end of Act 1, when they quote unquote defeated Eris, right? Because once again, she's not dead. um, I think it was a really cool like moment where our characters were able to be like, oh my gosh, look at what we did, this is so amazing and so cool. And then it was like we started Act 2, and I remember it was just like I had a lot of conversations with you, especially with the time skip and everything, of like what would Amelia be doing? Like, would she be making a pantheon? Would she be making, like, what would that mean to her and that sort of thing? And I think that's why Amelia is a little bit more, she's powerful because she definitely has a lot of faith in Celia. But I feel like Amelia over the last couple of years is very much learning that she um, shouldn't expect so much of her life to be involved in the gods. Um, so it's a really cool like dynamic, and I think just the Greek mythology nerd in me is like, oh my god, they're so cool.
We never really truly left Percy Jackson.
Right.
No,
I
we
mean,
never. We're still there.
I mean, why
actually.
would we? You know, it's
It's
a
good.
fantastic series.
If it ain't broke.
Right. Don't.
I mean, for sure, the Greek gods definitely really inspired me when I made my pantheon. But also, it's important to note that the pantheon grew over time.
For sure.
I think when I first started making this, I started out with Tenera and Retris, and I grew from there to see what I wanted to make happen over time. And as it came up, as I had ideas, I added more characters, and then I fleshed them out. And you know, some of the gods have a little bit less information, and that's fine. But it's mostly having to do with how involved they are with this actual story and what they have done within the story since we've been playing it.
And I think that's one of the cool things about like how much knowledge we have about each of the gods is that it feels very much like the knowledge that even we talked about tonight, right? Which, you know,
Mhm.
we've been talking for only almost an hour and a half. Like the knowledge that even we have is still pretty relative because it's almost it gives it the feel of, you know, we as people only know as much as our characters would based off of
Mhm.
like reading and studying and things like that. um, so it makes it like really fun. um, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I love
Yeah,
talking about the gods. Big fan.
I know.
I mean, duh, you
It
know.
took everything in me not to tangent too hard, but there's going to be plenty of these lore talks
Yeah.
where we get
I
into a lot more detail.
Yeah, and this is
Some of these
more
names will show up
for
again.
everyone else to be able to be like, wait, who the freak of frack is Celia? Or
Mhm.
who is Hecta and how is she interacting with Sarah? Right?
Who's
Or
just been
like
shocking in our head?
why is Dormir being called Ophime's dad when he very much is not? So I think it's I don't know, it's
Spoiler.
really
I'm kidding.
cool because the just don't tell Ophime, she'll be pissed. But
I think entire
it's
worldview would
fun.
collapse.
Oh yeah, her entire
Yeah,
worldview would just shatter, and she'd be like,
that'd be
"Why
really
was
bad.
everyone lying to me for so long?"
Oh no.
Yeah. Villain origin story. No, but yeah, I think it's really cool, and ultimately we wanted to make this um, stream, or I guess video, specifically for you guys that, you know, if you're ever curious about anything, these lore talks are going to be more for, they're going to be very conversational. We're not going to have like any role play or anything like that.
Yeah, very free form. It's just going to be like informational, but then also opportunity for my players and for anybody who does show up in chat to ask questions. And I am more than happy to lore dump because unfortunately this is a world that just lives in my head rent free. I'm living my life and I'm thinking about this. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a great outlet for that.
Right. And I think it's just, it's also, I think it'll be fun that, you know, if anybody ever wants to come back later, or if they come into our stream a little bit longer down the line, they have something that they can go, you know, binge where
Mhm.
it's like, okay, show me the world, tell me about it. Let's get
Yeah,
into it. But I feel like it was the easiest to start with the gods just because everything kind of like originates from them.
for sure.
Um, I believe we are going to try to have another one of these next week. So,
Yes. I would like our next one to be you guys talking about your characters.
Okay.
And
That
I
go from there.
minute.
yeah, we can do that. I mean, we could probably even do like I don't know. We'll talk it out. We'll
We'll
figure
figure it
out
out.
how it
All
looks and
right.
everything. But we're gonna
It's
do
great,
it.
guys.
But love you guys, and
Yes, yes.
please make sure to stop by the stream on Monday. Um, that will be February the 3rd. Please come stop by. We'll be at 8 p.m. Central start. Um, and we're going to dive back into the world that popped out of Mars's brain.
Yeah, we'll see how our girls get out of this one.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Goodbye.